Okay, so today we're going to be doing lesson 6.3. Our objective or our goal is to solve linear systems by elimination. So far, we've solved linear systems by graphing and by substitution. And this is now your final method, which is elimination. So, step 1, when solving a system by elimination, you need to line up both of your equations, 2x plus 4y equals 2, and 4x minus 4y equals 16, so that you can add these together and cancel a variable out. So your goal, elimination, is to eliminate one of the variables. So if I were to add these two equations together, I would say 2x plus 4x is 6x. Oh, perfect. 4y minus 4y is 0. That eliminated the y. And 2 plus 16 is 18. So always line them up, add them straight down, assuming you can cancel one of those variables out. Step 2, now we have this equation, 6x equals 18. We can solve for our variable. Solve for variable. So we have 6x equals 18. And I can divide both sides by 6. So x equals 3. This now can be used to find the missing y. Step 3 would be to sub x into either equation and then solve for y. Same as substitution. Once you get that first number, you can take that number, plug it in, and find the other number, the other variable. Again, I can plug it into either equation. So I take x equals 3, and I'm going to plug it into the first one, so I don't have to deal with any negatives. 2x plus 4y equals 2. And I take 2 times 3 plus 4y equals 2. And then from here, I have enough information now to solve for y. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 4y equals 2. From here, I subtract 6, and I get 4y equals negative 4. Divide by 4, divide by 4, y equals negative 1. Now, by now, you should know, in order to write the final answer for this question, you need to write it as an ordered pair. So we found that x equals 3, then plugged that back into one of the equations, and found that y equals negative 1. This point will satisfy both of these equations. It is where these two equations equal each other, where they intersect, where they equal each other, where they cross. Okay, make sure that you know what this point represents. Okay, I can plug this point into both equations and they will both be satisfied. Let's just kind of back up a little bit and remind ourselves of what we went through so far. Step 1 was to set up your two equations, one on top of another. Make sure that you line up those variables that are going to cancel out. Add those two equations together. You get a new equation where you can solve for a missing variable. Take that variable, plug it into one of the originals, and solve for y. Let's go ahead and go through one more example. something a little bit different here. It says use subtraction to eliminate a variable. Well, here we have 7x plus 5y equals 18, and 7x minus 3y equals 34. Our goal is to eliminate a variable. Well, luckily, it looks like we have a 7x and a 7x. But if we were to add these two straight down, we would get 14x plus 2y equals, that is 52. And that's not really going to help us out much because it does not eliminate a variable. So in order to solve this one, I still want to add them straight down, but before I add them straight down, I want to multiply either the top or bottom by a -1. Because what's going to happen when I multiply one of them by a -1? I'm going to get -7x minus 5y equals -18. And then I line up my second equation, 7x minus 3y equals 34. So I multiplied that first equation by -1 so that now I can cancel these two things out. So I take -7x plus 7x and I get 0. I take -5y minus 3y and I get -8y, which equals -18 plus 34, which is 16. The only difference between this problem and the last problem so far is that we needed to take one of these equations and multiply it by a negative so that we were able to cancel those out. Now moving on to step 2, we need to solve for x. When we solve for y. When we solve for y, we now have a very simple one-step equation here. All you need to do is divide by -8. That gives us y equals -2. We are not quite done yet because we need to have 2 points, an x and a y, that will satisfy our equation. So once we find our y, we can then take our x and solve for that by plugging our y into one of the originals. I'm going to go with the first one. Okay, now I have enough information to solve for x. I need to add 10, and I get 7x equals 28. Divide by 7, x equals 4. I now have an x and a y that will satisfy both equations. My x was 4, my y was -2. I would like to go through one more thing with you on this video, and that is what happens if your terms are not arranged properly. Your goal then is to rearrange your terms so that they do line up with one another. I generally want x, y, and c just like in standard form. Looks like this first one is in standard form. Now I'm going to rearrange the second one so that it is as well. All I need to do here is subtract 6x from both sides, where I get -6x plus 13y equals 8. My other equation up here was 6x minus 4y equals 10. From here, you follow the same process as example 1 and example 2. It is simply just important that your variables line up with one another. So if you have to do some maneuvering, that you go ahead and do that. Please go ahead and finish this problem for tomorrow.